All right, why don't we go ahead and get started? So for those of you who just jumped on, we are dropping a copy of the PowerPoint presentation into the chat box. So you should be able to grab that and download that to your computer. And then you'll be able to follow along with us. This is being recorded. So at the end of this, if you'd like a copy of the recording, you can contact Julie Pelletier. Hopefully you are here to join us because you were part of our 21-22 cohort. It's crazy to me to even think that we're talking about 21-22, but we are. So we're going to get started. So as I mentioned, we are recording this. And if you want a copy of the recording, you can contact Julie Pelletier. So we're going to just quickly do introductions. Excuse me. My name is Colette Sullivan. I'm the Federal Programs Coordinator. And I am here with Leora Byris and Jennifer Gleason. Before I joined the department, I was a special ed teacher for about 30 years, worked primarily with students with autism. And Leora, can you and Jennifer please come on and say hello?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Leora Byers. I was also a special educator before joining the department almost 3 years ago.
Thank you. Jennifer?
And I am Jennifer Gleason. I'm the newest member of the monitoring team, and I too was a special ed teacher before I started here.
Great, thank you, ladies. And we are also joined by Julie Pelletier, who keeps us in line and on schedule. So thank you, Julie. So as I mentioned, hopefully you are here because you are part of the 21-22 cohort. Our agenda will include, we're going to talk about the desk audit process and as it relates specifically to the required indicators that we have to report out to OSEP. We are going to talk about your self-assessment. We're going to show you the due dates for all of the desk audit information as well as your on-site visit. We will talk about the parent and staff survey, talk about what's next, and we do have a chat box check-in built in. But Jennifer is going to be manning the chat box throughout. So if questions come up, feel free to drop those in there. We are a relatively large group, so I would ask that you keep yourself on mute. Unless you have a question, then feel free to pop off and ask that directly, or you can put it in the chat box, whatever you're most comfortable with. So the documents that you will need will be emailed to your director, probably in late August, mid to late August. And the documents that we will include in that email will be a copy of this PowerPoint. We will include all required forms that will be necessary to get through the process. We will include the B11 initial evaluation timeline materials. We're going to talk very specifically about what each one of these look like. We will include the electronic monitoring tool, which you'll hear us refer to as the EMT, in both Word format and Excel format. We're going to make sure that you have a copy of the monitoring timelines. And we also have a PowerPoint that we're going to train to later on, which talks very specifically about helping you choose your IEPs, which IEPs would make the most sense to incorporate into your self-assessment. We're going to include that. And then we'll include a document that talks very specifically about next steps. So this is a copy of the monitoring timeline. I apologize that it's small, but this will be included in the email to directors. And the first thing is the letter of notification and instruction. Julie Pelletier will be sending that out to directors by July 16th, 2021. And that will outline all of these components very clearly, including the timelines, and it will also include your on-site visit. And you can see that the rest of the forms that we look for in terms of the desk audit itself are also on this timeline, and those are all due December 1st. And again, we're going to talk about each one of these. So the audit is part of the Office of Special Ed Programming. It's a requirement, and it came about through what we refer to as Memo 0902. And that was August 25th, 2017. And what that basically stipulated was that errors need to be corrected. And all of our corrections are really built around IDEA requirements, as well as the Maine Unified Special Education requirements. So, as I mentioned, your letter of notification and instruction will be sent to directors by July 16th. All desk audit information is due December 1st. So what does the desk audit need to involve? These are all of the components that we will look for in your desk audit submission. So we will want the B11 and B13 information, and those are both required indicators that we have to report to the federal government in terms of our own data. We have an accuracy document, fund authorization letters, the summary of performances, policies, procedures, certification if it's necessary, manifestation determination if that's necessary, and abbreviated day also if necessary. Those last three, you may or may not, they may or may not be relevant to your district, but we'll reach out if they are. So let's take a look at each one of these. So the first required indicator is B11, and that is that child find. It is an SPP indicator, and it requires evidence of compliance. So as you know, that is the percent of children for whom evaluations were completed within 45 school days. So we look at two components for B11. We have to report out INR1 and INR3. Those are just the codes. And INR1 is around procedural safeguards. So making sure that you document the notification when those procedural safeguards were given to parents. And our guidance is that those should be given and offered to parents at the point of first contact. So at an initial referral, when you generate that advanced written notice that talks about the upcoming evals, that would be the time when you would want to make sure that parents are offered their procedural safeguards. So we would look for evidence of this. We would want to see the advanced written notice, the written notice enclosed with the parental consent, and the date stamp or handwritten when the parental consent was received back. We also look for INR3, which is that 45-day timeline. And we look for evidence of acceptable reasons for delay. And we would ask you to include this as well as your 2021 and 21-22 school calendar. And we ask that on that calendar, you clearly document snow days so that we know exactly what is a school day and what is not. So your B11 submissions should include the following. We're asking you to please send us the first 10 parental consents. Now remember, these are initial referrals only from March 1st, 2021 to October 15th, 2021. We need to see the completed evaluation on the signed consent form. So we would like to see, if you have a consent form, we want to see the first page of each of those completed evals that were on that consent, the date noted when each of those were received. And we also want to see eligibility forms that correspond to those 10 consents. So we're asking you to please send us, as it relates back to those, 3 specific learning disability eligibility forms, 3 adverse effect forms, and 1 speech and language eligibility form. We also ask that in terms of those eligibility forms that you please send in the corresponding written notices for them, because we are required to look in those written notices to make sure that you discussed them at the meeting. So we look for evidence that those were discussed. We look to make sure that those initial evals were completed within 45 school days of parental consent. And we are really thinking that COVID is going to impact what school days looked like for districts. So really think about school days and what school days looked like for you. And remember, that's the number of days that all students were in session. And you're going to document this on the B11 tracking tool. If for some reason evals were not completed within the 45 school days, you're going to document on the B11 tracking tool why that was. We're going to show you what that tracking tool looks like. And you're going to just tell us the reason why. And then you're going to document how many school days beyond the 45 it went. If for some reason the evaluations are not completed by December 1st, when we're asking you to submit your desk audit, just let us know and we'll follow up with you to make sure that they're completed on the other side. This will be included in the email to your director, and this is the acceptable and unacceptable reasons for delay related to this indicator B11. So these are outlined here. This is from IDEA, so we didn't have a lot of freedom in terms of how we could manipulate these reasons, but really think about these specific to COVID. And if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us and let us know. This is the B11, excuse me, timeline tracking tool. So what you'll do is along the left-hand side there in column 1, you're going to document the child's last name. Then you'll document the date the consent, the initial eval was received by the SAU. So it's really important to make sure that the date it's received is either date stamped or written on there because that counts as day 1. You'll write out the date that all initial evals were due, and that's the last day of your 45 school day timeline. Date all initials, date the initial evals when they were received. So again, that's really important that that date stamp received is either stamped on there or handwritten on there so that we can clearly see when they were received back. You'll count out the days, those school days. And if you go beyond the 45 school days, you're going to document that here and then tell us the reason why. Column 8 is documentation of procedural safeguards. And remember, we want to see those at point of first contact. Any questions about what I've discussed so far before I turn it over to Leora to talk about the B13 indicator? All right, Leora, you're up.
All right, thank you. So as Colette said, B13 is another one of the required indicators that we have to report our data for every cohort to OSEP. So this is about secondary transition with IEP goals, the percentage of youth age 16 or up with IEPs who have measurable annual IEP goals and transition services. So this is section 9 of the IEP, which is, of course, is the post-secondary transition plan. And as you all know, this section must be completed for each IEP during but not later than 9th grade, which is MUSER, or age 16, which is IDEA. So important to remember that because this data is reported to IDEA, to OSEP, we need to make sure that we're following IDEA's regulation here, which means that the transition plans we are looking at should be for students that are age 16 at least, and not seniors, because then it's difficult to make any amendments if they're needed. So these are the pieces of the indicator. There's 8 different parts to it. And we need to, the thing with this indicator and the way we have to report the data is that it's all or nothing. So you can have a lovely transition plan and forget to put NA in 9G, and it's counted as 0% compliant. So that's why we're going to spend just a minute going over what the 8 pieces are, because if you don't have all 8 pieces of the transition plan of the B13 indicator, it's counted as 0% compliant. So the first thing is you need appropriate measurable post-secondary goals that are annually updated. We look at the written notice for that to make sure that you are talking about those at the meeting, that they're based on age-appropriate transition assessments, that they're transition services, which are not child will statements in 9F, that there's also a course of study, which is projected out to the end of that child's post-secondary secondary education. There also should be annual IEP goals in section 5 that are aligned to the transition plan with language. And we do have a B13 training, which some of you I think have been to, and others we do have one scheduled that I'll get to in just a minute. There should be evidence that the student was invited to the IEP meeting, and we look at the advanced written notice for that. And that if appropriate, any representative of a participating agency was invited to the IEP team meeting with prior consent of the parent or student if they've reached the age of majority. So that's that sort of nefarious 9G that I was talking about. And 9G is one of two places in Section 9 that can say NA. So if the child does not have any other outside agencies, perfectly fine to say NA. So as part of your desk audit, we would like you to send in 2 submissions. And for your submissions for this, these are screeners. And these will sort of give us an idea of how your district is doing related to compliance, but we only want Section 9 of the IEP. You don't have to sanitize Section 9, but we're just really focusing on that transition plan. And then we can give you a little bit of feedback on that without having you go back and make amendments if we see non-compliance. So we're going to look at your submissions, your screeners, and then we're going to look at final submissions when we're on site next spring. And we do have a professional development schedule. So if you need to update your B13, this will be a great time. So the desk audit, the required indicator B13, we have training scheduled on January 5th, 2022 from 9 to 11 and then from 1 to 3. And those links are, that link right there is live. So you can go to the calendar and sign up for that. We think it's probably best practice for either you or a member of your team to register and attend. It will be recorded because we want to make sure that, so desk audits are due like December 1st. We need to have time to review everything and then let you know how things are. And then we want you to have time between us giving you the professional development in January and potentially coming on site to see you guys in March, April, May-ish. For there to be change moving forward. So if there does need to be compliance issue addressed in your transition plan, you should have a couple of months to do that at your annuals in between when we look at your screeners and when we go on site to look at your final submission. So the final submissions are based on child count, and when we are on site, we're going to look at these, and we will look at the advance written notice to make sure the child was invited. We'll look at the written notice to make sure that the goals and progress was discussed, and we'll look at the IEP to make sure there's alignment all through the IEP to the transition plan. Again, we're looking at the IDEA indicator, so we'll be looking at students that are 16 or older, and we don't want to look at graduating seniors because that makes it difficult if we see non-compliance. You can see the child count below. If your child count is 0 to 49, we would look at 2 final submissions, 50 to 199, 4, 200 to 399, 6, 400 to 758. And if your child count is more than 750, we will look at 10 final submissions. This is the accuracy document. Well, first of all, are there any questions about the B13 piece before I go on to the other pieces of the desk audit? Anything in the chat box, Jennifer?
Nothing in the chat box.
Perfect. Okay. So this is the accuracy document. This needs to be signed, and you can either mail it back to us or you can scan it and email it back to our monitoring inbox. And this just, the director signs it, is just the accuracy certification form, letting us know that whatever you have submitted to us to the best of your ability, the best of your knowledge, is accurate, and it's a good reflection of your process and your district. Fund authorization letters. Our guidance is to include an individual letter for each person. Some districts will submit one letter with multiple names on it. And the difficulty with that is if somebody at the IEP team, an administrator, is ever asked to show their fund authorization letter at an IEP meeting, which I know is not common, but it does happen on off chances, you don't necessarily want that IEP team participant to know who else in your district can direct special education funds. So that's why our guidance is that if you have those fund authorization powers, abilities, that you have one letter for each person, so that that isn't sort of information that's sort of out in the universe with no guidance around it.
Leora,
Yes.
We just got a question in the chat box about B13.
Yep.
I'm just going to read the question.
Perfect.
Our school is primarily K-8. How would B13 apply to us? We do track our high schoolers, but the high schools take care of the paperwork.
Okay, so this does get, this is a question that comes up every cohort, because as we know in Maine, there are some districts who tuition their students out to high school. However, the district that the child lives in is still responsible for free appropriate public education. So we will still look at some information, etc., because technically you still are responsible for that, for the offer of FAPE, because you're the town they live in. So, but we can talk to districts about that separately if that applies to you, because I know it doesn't apply to everybody. Is there another question, Jennifer?
Yep, just got in another one. If a student enrolls this fall and is a 9th grader without transition completed, do I do it at the move-in conference, or can it wait until the annual meeting is held?
Great question. So MUSER says that the transition plan needs to be included by the end of the 9th grade year. So our guidance in that situation would be at your first meeting, the transition into your program meeting with the child. In the written notice, you would document that the child does not have a transition plan, and the team will meet prior to the end of the school year to make sure that that is included. And that way you'll still be in compliance, and just make sure that, you're putting that meeting on the books for April or something like that, so that you can get that onto their IEP by the end of their 9th grade year. Anything else, Jennifer?
That's it for now.
Okay. Summary of performance. So as you all know, this is a required document for students who are leaving high school, whether it is with a diploma or certificate of completion. This summarizes the child's academic achievement, and it's required under IDEA. And it's basically, I like to think of it as an introduction. Like, this is the introductory letter for the child to take into the next stage of their life, whether it's to a community college or to supportive employment, or whether it's to a university to look at 504 issues or accommodations. So you really want this document. It's very important, and you want it to accurately reflect what the child is able to do and what they need to be successful moving forward. The most common reason why we find non-compliance in a summary of performance is a lack of data. This should be a robust document. This should be full of evaluative information. Section 1 is the summary of academic achievement. Section 2 is the summary of functional performance. There should be data points in there. There should be guidance from the child's most recent IEP. And this, we look at 3 of these as evidence that they were given to the child prior to exiting high school in June of 2021. And we do have a recording. We did a very short professional development about this. I believe it's up on our website. It's only like maybe 20 minutes long, but it really goes through each section of the summary of performance. Okay, so we also ask that you as the director submit a letter of assurance to us stating that you have reviewed your policies and procedures, your referral policy, child find, and restraint and seclusion, chapter 33, and that if they don't meet compliance for one reason or another, that you will review and make changes if necessary. If you've recently broken away from an SAU, an AOS, or a union, or become your own district, because that happens in Maine, then we would need to see those current policies and procedures. But for many of you, we already have them on file, so that's why the letter of assurance is fine for that. So teacher certification is run annually, whether and it's run on the certification of the entire district. So if you have certification errors, you will get a report about the special education side of things, but you'll also get the report for the general education side of things. And we just ask that you give that to the business manager or whoever, takes care of that in general education for your district. So you won't hear from us unless there are issues. If there are issues, we send you the very specific snippet of what the issues are, who they are, etc. And then to correct those issues, by the time that we issue your corrective action plan, you would either send us a snippet back of the certification report saying that that has been taken care of and everything's all set, or you could send us a letter of assurance that you have addressed this and that it's in the process, etc. Yeah, so that's only if you if your district has issues there. Colette, did I miss anything with that? I feel like that was kind of quick. Hopefully not. Okay.
Leora, we have a question going back to summary of performance.
Perfect.
Can the summary of performance be mailed just after graduation so they can include final transcripts, or is that too late?
Well, the indicator says that, or not the indicator, the policy says that, the regulation says that it should be given to the student prior to their exit of high school. And generally speaking, graduation would be that. So it should be given to them prior to that. Anything else? Okay. So manifestation determination, this is indicator B4, and this is an indicator that we run annually. So you will hit with suspensions and expulsions. So, oh dear, I just gotta, yeah?
I'm sorry, we just lost you for a second. Can you start on the beginning of this slide again?
I can. I just got one of those pop-ups that my internet is unstable, which is kind of unusual.
Thank you.
Okay. So, okay, manifestation determination is indicator B4, and we run this internally at the DOE every single year. So if you don't hear from us, that's awesome. Everything is all set. If you have issues of disproportionality with the suspension or expulsion of children with disabilities, you will hear from us, even if you are not in cohort, because this is a required indicator. So we review everybody for this, even if you're not in current, and you'll be contacted directly. Either me, Colette, or Jennifer will contact you and say, okay, so we ran your B4 and there's some issues here, so please send us A, B, and C. And we'll go from there with you about what to do from that. And the school year we'd be looking at, I believe, would be 2021, Colette?
I would need to get clarification from Sean about that, but they run that through the data team.
Yeah, because this might be one of the ones that has a lag year. So we definitely need to check with Sean about that. Okay, abbreviated day. This is an addition this year. So if you're sitting there going, they've never done this before, you're absolutely right. So this is for districts that have children who are on abbreviated days. We would like you to send us a list of who is on your abbreviated day and how long they've been on abbreviated day. And when we come to your site to do your file review, we'll look at those files and review them on site. So if you have a hard time getting all this together by December 1st and the EMT and all that kind of stuff, just let us know. We are perfectly happy to look at time extensions, or if you're a smaller district and you only have one summary of performance, or we will work with you. Nothing is set in stone, so please just reach out to us and we will help you out. The parent survey, Julie will send this out to the director via email. It's open for the whole school year. We close it end of June, and then Jennifer and I will run the reports, and you will get district-specific results if your N size is met. The N size is 5. So if you have 5 or more people respond from your district, then you will get district-specific feedback. If there are 4 or less from your district, then you'll get cohort-specific feedback, about how the parents survey. Staff survey, Julie will provide a link via an email, and it is sent to directors about a month before we visit. Julie is super, super good, and whoever is assigned, either me, Jennifer, or Colette, through your district this year to follow your district and help you through it, we were really good at reaching out and being like, okay, so we're coming in a month. Here's the link to the parent survey. Here's the link to the staff survey. This is what we need to have, when we come see you, we're so excited, all that kind of stuff, because we really are excited to come see you guys this year, because it's been a little lonely in our home offices. Anyway, okay, so this is a Likert scale, and it also has some open-ended questions. It takes about 10 minutes to complete. And again, if your N size is met of 5, we'll give you district-specific results related to the staff survey. If you don't meet the N size, then we'll give you cohort-specific. And the analysis of the data is done in usually end of June. You'll usually get it in July. Whoa, I feel like I was talking very quickly. Are there any questions that came up in the chat box?
We have asked them all.
All right. Okay, self-assessment. So this is the EMT, the electronic monitoring tool. So this should be completed with your students, with your student files, and you should have a variety of kids on your EMT, a variety of disabilities, including at least one who's identified with multiple disability, a variety of ages, including students with transition plans, a variety of case managers, ethnicities, a variety of schools within the SAU. And again, please do not send graduating seniors. It makes it challenging to do amendments if they're needed. So this is the suggested number of files that you would look at for your EMT and submit to us. If your child count is 0 to 49, we ask you to look at 15. 50 to 199 is 20. 200 to 400 is 30, and more than 400 would be 50 files. So you're going to look at these, do the self-assessment, and then when we come on site, we'll look at the physical files that are already on the EMT to compare those. So don't forget, if you have students in an out-of-unit placement, make sure to include at least one from each of your out-of-unit placements if they have been placed within the last 2 years as part of your self-assessment. We're looking at a couple of things, because don't forget that you as the district are responsible for FAPE for those children, even if they're placed out of district. So we're looking to make sure that there's good programming from that standpoint. But when we come on site, we're also going to be looking at the process. How did the child get placed out of unit, and making sure that it followed those user timelines. Are there questions in the chat box?
Yes, some just popped up. So child count is based on special education numbers, not whole district. And would I include kids that are placed in residential treatment?
If you are responsible for FAPE, yes. Yep. So when we come on site, we will ask you to have the files that you have on the EMT available for us to look at. We love when you have time to sit down with us and to look at, we look at this as an opportunity for professional development. So, but we also know that schedules can be a little bit challenging. So we love when you can, rotate your folks through to sit with us to look at one of their IEPs, and then somebody else comes in and so on. We've gotten really good feedback on that. We love to visit special education programming And we look at the evidence of the B13 programming, and we also look at that, the placement of the out of units as well. So we look at those 30-day reviews, et cetera. So there is a question in the chat. Oh, Jennifer, you got it. Perfect. Yes. Colette, actually, we're going to be doing a training on how to pick the perfect IEP for your self-assessment to talk about really, you know, how to set that up for you. So Julie will have dates on that.
Leora,
Okay.
in the
Yeah.
process of finding some dates, probably in October, and emails will go out as soon as we have them.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. So when we come on site, this is one of the things that we have with us, and we go over this during the exit interview. We talk about what pre-findings are, and we look at a due date for those. We talk about whether or not your district will be receiving a post-visit letter, which are items from outside of the EMT that we might have seen. We look at whether something is systemic, whether something would be guidance or would be put on a corrective action plan, and those out of unit findings as well could be part of a post-visit letter. We talk with you if we saw any DIB 1s, which are disability misalignments, and how to look at those as part of your IEP team. We'll tell you about what the summary of findings is, and we will talk about you know, the corrective action plan and how that comes out as well. And then we'll go over any past due desk audit paperwork. So if something wasn't submitted or something like that, we'll make sure that we leave this with you with the dates, et cetera, on it. So after the visit, it could include a post-visit letter if we see things that are from outside of the EMT, guidance based on the file review, and an explanation and any corrective action of files with any disability misalignments. So the disability misalignment piece is when we're talking about like a child with OHI, for example, who doesn't have functional programming on their IEP. We would ask about that, you know, because OHI is considered a functional disability. So how did the team, you know, look at this, et cetera? Or if we saw a kid who was identified with a specific learning disability who doesn't have academic programming, because of course SLD is an academic disability. So those are those kind of conversations that happen with the disability misalignment. Questions in the chat box, Jennifer?
We just had a question about if you have more than one school, we look at you as one entity.
Yeah, so the total number of files reviewed, it should be a sampling across, like if you have 4 different schools and you need to look at 20 files as part of your child count, then you look at a sample from each school, the different ages, different case managers, etc. So it's based on the total number of your child count of the children with disabilities. And Amy, it really depends on the size of your district about how many of us will come, but you will get an email from us about a month out and we'll tell you specifically what time we'll be there. And we've really packed our schedule a lot this year. We're trying to be really efficient with our times. Some days we're doing one district in the morning, and then if a district's not too far away, we'll do another one in the afternoon. So we will let you know very specifically how many of us. It will be at least 2 of us, could be as many as 4 of us, but probably not more than that. And yes, if it's for an AOS, it's your combined child count numbers. When I was dividing out from our team who was going to look at which district, that's what I looked at. I divided out each AOS and then added up the child count as they go. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we love to have teachers participate. Yep, that's perfect. Okay, summary of findings. So the summary of findings comes out after your visit, after pre-findings and all that kind of stuff. And this tells you your level of compliance with the entire desk audit process and the self-assessment and the on-site visit. With this cohort, with the 2021 cohort, we're just in this stage of the game right now. We're issuing their summary of findings to get ready to issue their corrective action plans. So the timeline for this is unique to each individual SAU that's in audit, because you might have an extension to get your pre-findings done, or you might have decided not to do pre-findings and you want to go directly to CAP. So we do the summary of findings. It's sent to you when the desk audit is done, when the on-site pre-findings are done, and when we have looked at your final B13 submission. The non-compliant summary of findings, we issue that at the same time that we do the summary of findings. And just as you probably already have figured out, the non-compliant one shows just the indicators that are not 100%. And any of those will be on your corrective action plan. So that gives you a heads up prior to receiving your corrective action plan, like how many findings am I going to have, things like that. This is really where that comes from. So the corrective action plan gets sent when you're done and have submitted the pre-findings, if you choose to do that, talks about the areas of non-compliance and the corrective activities that go with them, and it's closed within 1 year of the summary of findings. Okay, Colette, were you going to take this one, or was I still going to talk about this?
I can jump in.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Leora. So as we mentioned, Julie will be sending out a letter of notification and instruction, which will include all of this information that we've just gone over. And it will also have your on-site visit date. So once you receive that, if you know right away that for some reason that's just not going to work, let us know as soon as you know, so that we can work to get something else on the books for you, because we really want this to work. So what's next? So when you start to submit your documents, we ask that however you choose to submit them, whether it's via email or snail mail, that you just label everything so we know exactly what we're looking for. We currently are managing 3, sometimes 4 cohorts at a time. So it's just really helpful if we know that, oh, this is, RSU 6's desk audit information. So it just helps us sort of streamline it and get it where it needs to go. When your director receives the email, it will be from one of us. So our team breaks the cohort up, and we are each responsible for a number of districts. So that just gives you a contact person that you can consistently reach out to, just gives you an opportunity to develop a relationship with one of us and just really figure this out. So if you have your EMT and you've got some questions around that, you can reach out to your staff. And certainly if one of us aren't available, feel free to reach out to any, but you will be assigned a person. We do ask that you do not send a PDF version of the EMT. Excuse me. What happens when we receive those is we can't really do anything with them. We can't copy and paste them into our master EMT, and we have to sort of copy it over bit by bit. So that can take a little bit of time. If that's your only option, please feel free to let us know, and we'll try to figure something out. We'll either send you a thumb drive, or we don't want to make this harder for you. So if that's your only option, please reach out to us and we'll walk through that. It's easy, again, when you submit, if you try to organize it by type of evidence. And we ask, especially now, that you don't send anything via fax. Most of us are working, remotely for a good portion of the week. And even when we are in office, the fax machine is very inconsistent. Excuse me. And it's also located on a part of the floor where none of us live. So a fax might just sit there and we wouldn't even know it was there. So how would you submit? Well, you can submit via email to this monitoring.doe@maine.gov. That is a secure website that all of us on the team have access to. Nobody else has access to it but us. So if you send it there, it is safe, it is secure. If you want, you can just put, again, submit the evidence, let us know, and we'll grab it as it comes in. If you are more comfortable, you can certainly send it in the mail. Here's the address. We would ask that you would send it attention to Julie Pelletier. And what she will do is she'll go through it, she'll figure out who it belongs to, and she'll make sure that she gets it to us. So in terms of professional development opportunities, we have IEP trainings that we can certainly do. We have the B13 training that is already up on our PD calendar. Julie got that up there for us. At the end of your CAP, on the other end of this process, we offer 2 PD opportunities that might work for you. One is a CAP workshop. And what that does is that will work to facilitate the closing of your CAP. So, you know, you've got about a year to get your CAP done. If towards the end of the year, you reach out to us and say, you know what, I'm almost done, I want to get this done. What this will mean is we will come on site. You'll get a letter from one of us ahead of time telling you exactly what you would need to prepare. And then we will come right on site and we will review files and we'll sit with you and we will look for evidence that will close your CAP. So it's a very efficient way to get that done. And the other is a CAP specific training, and it's exactly what it sounds like. So if you receive your CAP, part of the prong 2 requirements to close your CAP would be professional development. So we could either come on and do a broad IEP training, or we could do the CAP specific training. And that would be very specific training to your findings. So it's very specific to you, to your district, and to what we found on your review. If you're interested in any of those, you can reach out to Julie and she will work to get those set up. So we talked at the beginning about a follow-up training that we do have, and it's about choosing appropriate IEPs for your self-assessment. Julie is working on a date for that, so she will send that out. She'll let you know when that's available. And what that does is it will just walk through the IEP programming, developments of IEPs, and it will tell you exactly what we look for each finding on the EMT itself, so that you'll be able to really look at your IEPs with a very critical eye and get a clear sense of, you know what, I'm gonna send this IEP, but maybe not this one. It helps you really think about the best IEPs to send in. Just a shameless plug, we do have our upcoming office hours already scheduled. We are going to start them September 8th, and they will run through the end of June. We are going to do them, this is based on feedback from the field. So the 2nd and 4th Wednesday of each month from 3 to 4 will be content specific. And the last Friday of each month from 11:30 to 12 will just be office hours. They'll just be open. So for Q&A, so if you just have you know, what we've had in the past is people just pop in, oh, I've got a quick question about a transition plan. Great. And then they'll pop right back off. So that's just available to you to sort of use however you need it. And the topics that we have sort of planned for, we're going to talk about referral. We're going to really break the IEP out and do some very specific alignment. We're going to talk very specifically about how to make sure your IEPs are compliant. We're going to go through section by section. We're going to talk about compliant transition plans, again, section by section, and then talk about transitioning from CDS to public school. And we have a data series that we're going to roll out as well. This is the link to the professional development calendar. Julie is working very hard to get stuff up there, but it will be up there if it's not already. So feel free to go on and take a peek at those. Any questions? We went over a lot of information and we went over it kind of quick. So are there other questions in the chat box, Jennifer, that we should, or do people want to pop on and ask questions specific?
We have a question in the chat box about preschool. Okay. It says this is for K-12, correct? Preschools are not included?
Correct. That is correct. Other questions? All right. If Jennifer has not already done so, she is going to drop the contact hour certificate in the chat box for you. You'll get 1 contact hour for participating today. So again, just grab it, download it to your computer, and you can fill that in and use that towards your professional development. Here is our contact information one more time. So again, please feel free to reach out to any of us if you've got questions. We really want to be supportive to you all. This is a big process, and You know, we understand completely that you're all still operating in a very challenging time. COVID is not over, although I think we're at the end of it, hopefully, but we really just want to make this as painless as possible. It's a process that we have not been able to put on hold, as you all know. So we really want to just support you the best way that we can. Any other questions? Or anything else we can do for any of you before we let you go? No? Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you very much, everybody. I hope you have a lovely day. It is sunny out. It's beautiful out. And please let us know if you need anything, okay? Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.